Chris, I saw the notice that's being live streamed. Does that mean we're good to go?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I will call the meeting of the Blighted Property Review Committee for November 17th, 2021 to order. We have a quorum. Looks like our only absence from committee members. Oh, wait a minute. Did Joe just drop off? I think the codes officer and Ms. Adams just dropped off. So we're gonna give them a second to drop back on. We are meeting remotely via Zoom. I do note Mrs. McDermott is not here, but it looks like we have everybody else once Mr. Girardi gets back. Skip, do you want to shoot those guys a note or give them a quick call? I don't know if do they know they're not on?
I'll try.
Thanks. Looks like we're connecting. Joe, is that Joe Girardi there on audio only?
No, I'm back. We're up and running. I kicked off by accident, hit the wrong button.
Okay.
So
There you go. I see you now. Okay, great. And thank you, Skip, for getting that squared away. Okay, so we are at subject number 1 from the agenda that Ms. Adams sent out. Approval of the minutes for the meeting. There's two meetings we need to approve. The first is the meeting of August 18th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Tony and Vince, thank you. A motion and a second. Discussion on the minutes of 1st of August 18th. Questions. These would have been attached to the original agenda from the meeting on October 20th that and so that's where they would be. I do have a question on the minutes. I note that in the section where commercial properties were voted on, there's a note about Mr. Girardi recommended to table. I have no recollection of a motion to table. Does anyone else? Joe, do you remember that or what that was about? I was a little surprised to see that. I don't remember the item. It would have been at the end of the discussion.
right, and I don't remember that at all.
From August 18th,
From August 18th,
Yeah.
what section? Right here it is.
towards the end of the meeting.
I'm not sure how that got in there because I just don't remember it, and it wouldn't make sense if we made a motion to table after we'd already voted on it. But I just want to make the record clear.
I just put down what was.
Yeah, I'm gonna have. She wrote down probably what she maybe have heard on that. I have no issues with that being room because I don't recollect having that tabled on there. So yeah,
because that's not the way our meetings would normally flow, correct, Mr. Girardi?
I would believe so. You're correct. Yep.
Okay, all right. So I would take that out. That was my suggestion for an amendment to that. Anyone else comments, questions on that? Okay, so with that correction, I guess we'll do this the Zoom way. Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. The second item is the minutes of the meeting of October 20th of 2021, which were attached, I believe, to this mailing. Do I have a motion to approve? Looks like Tony's making that, although he's muted.
I'm sorry. No, I would have to abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. Vince made a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion on those minutes? Do I have any negative votes? The minutes are approved. Okay, the next item, sorry, I'm scrolling here. An update on the 18 vacant / blighted residential properties, Mr. Girardi.
I just wanted to give everybody an update where we're at with those. Presently, the first two sheets break them down individually, shows you what we have done and where we're at. I just rather go to the summary section and explain to you what these properties are. And if you have any questions on those, you're more than welcome to ask. First one, there's one property that has been totally renovated. That's 810 or 510 Roll Avenue. That's back on the market. There's 8 properties. Yep.
I would just comment for the record that that's a great success story. I think that's what the intention always is to motivate people to either transfer their properties to someone who can take care of them or fix them up themselves. So that building looks great from the outside, at least.
Yep. There's 8 properties that are ready for legal action by the city and acquisition by the city, which means basically it's gone through us, it's gone through the planning commission, it has gone through redevelopment authority, and we're sitting now waiting for monies to be available to acquire these buildings. Okay. There's one property that through the time frame, the previous owner of that property accepted all the letters that were sent to him, even certified mail, but he never owned the property. He sold it. So I think he was just playing games with us. So I have a new owner on that property, and that's the property at 415 High Street. One property. Go ahead.
Mr. Girardi, have you been in touch with that owner?
No, I have not yet. I have made contact by phone. He has not returned my call. I'm hoping to go over and just post the property to get his information. I know he's inside working on that property, doing more demolition and work than anything, but he's the new owner. So and when the property sold for one individual to another, and I know this is required by the real estate companies, probably not by individuals, but the owner of the old property should have notified the new property owner that he had a property that was blighted in the Blighted Property Review Board, because any kind of problems that someone has on a property should be notified or brought to the new owner's understanding, if I'm correct, Tony.
Or Ann.
Yep. So, yes. Yep. So, no, but I will, like I said, I will make a point to get a hold of him and talk to him about what's going on and see what he's doing with that property.
So if he's working in there, has he pulled it? They pulled a building permit then?
Demolition permit, demolition of the interior of the building. We don't usually require permits. It's when they come in for the final repair. Okay, we require them not to close anything up until we get inside to do a general demolition permit. Okay, so that's where he's at with that property. One property, and this is the property located up on West 3rd Street, 2237 West 4th Street. That property is being renovated and he has eliminated several of the code violations. He's been working on this since he got a letter received from us. I'm hoping to have that brought into compliance by spring. And hopefully that'd be one of those feel-good stories where we got somebody to do something with the property. Okay, then there's the last 7 properties. 3 of those properties are out-of-state owners or are deceased owners, which is in an estate. I'm working with Austin to try to figure out how to actually serve those individuals, because it's not similar to what it is here in Lycoming County. We did serve 3 in Lycoming County, and they were all served, got their notice, and never appealed anything. Those are the ones that were added to those original 4 that I said that we have 8, is it 8 properties? Yeah, those are part of those 8 properties. They were approved by the Blighted Property Review Board. They went through the Planning Commission. They went through the Williamsport Redevelopment Authority. The letter was sent, certified, returned with no one signing on it. So then we served them with a sheriff's notice with the information, and they were all physically served. They did not appeal within the time frame for the appeal. So that's why it's on this list ready to be the acquisition by the city. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the process is blighted property, then we send the letter. I thought that before the redevelopment authority I thought we sent the letters before we sent it to the redevelopment authority, right? Because once it goes to the redevelopment authority, we're out of it, correct? Or am I?
No, from my understanding, what we do is we approve them as blighted, then we must forward them on to the redevelop, or to the planning commission for an approval, and then the redevelopment authority, because those are the ones who are actually saying, yes, we're going to purchase these buildings. And at that point, we send that letter out to the owner because we have our ducks in a row. Then they have the right to appeal that decision. But just because all we're doing is a recommending body to the planning commission and the water and the redevelopment authority. Once that's done, then they become part of a blighted list.
Yeah, okay, I think we're having pronoun problems. So when you say we, you mean we, the city, Joe, and Jen, I think you mean we, this
Yes.
committee. Okay.
Yes.
So Joe, you're talking about the city, you're talking about the sum total of the city actions that your office supports, which includes the support of the redevelopment authority work. But our work is done once we vote. And then that authorizes, I guess, me or Tony and to sign those letters. And that's,
Correct.
and then Blighted Property Review Committee is done. Those are certified. All we're doing is certifying blight by an independent set of eyeballs, correct?
Right. And then if you give me a minute, I can pull out the ordinance, but I think at that point, so once we certify them as blight, then it goes to those other different committees.
Right. So it doesn't, so we send the letters before it goes to the redevelopment authority, correct?
We send a letter that says you're certified as blight to the property owners.
Right.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
first to the redevelopment authority and then we send the letters. That's why I guess I didn't realize we had sent so many properties on to the redevelopment authority, right? I mean, so these are kind of out of our hands now, right? If that's
Basically, they're sitting there and on a list waiting for us to get funding, meaning us, the redevelopment authority. Once that happens, then the redevelopment authority or community development, and Skip, you can help me with this, basically just community development and redevelopment authority, we're going to send out legal action and acquisition. And I don't know how that happens until we start doing the process. And then we try to acquire those properties. But when I say we, it's not the Blighted Property Review Board, it's the other committee down the road. Am I correct, Skip?
Right. The redevelopment authority has, once they receive the properties through the planning commission process, then typically what we've done with the ones in the past is we've gone back to those same property owners and said, look, we, the redevelopment authority, have the authority to acquire the properties. We're reaching out to you to allow you the opportunity to remedy. And if you don't, then the redevelopment authority will take action. Now, the redevelopment authority is kind of caught in a situation where right now, the resources to acquire properties just aren't readily available. That may change here in the very near future, where we may have some money to be able to do that type of acquisition, either through the redevelopment authority or potentially if the city approves the land bank ordinance for the land bank.
Nope, I understand. So just to kind of clean this all up. So number 1, 510 Rural Ave, we're done with that, right? They're back in compliance. We don't need to talk about them anymore, correct?
That's correct.
Number 2 and number 3, those properties have all been moved on to the redevelopment authority. So we are done with them, correct?
The 8 properties, yeah, the 8 properties, yes. If you're looking at the first list I gave you, you are correct.
Well,
The individual breakdowns. Let me get my other list out. Okay. Yes,
Right.
number 2 and number 3. We're basically done with those. They're sitting on a list waiting to be acquired by the city.
okay, great. So that's all our work is finished there.
Correct. I think though the committee wanted to know an update,
Yeah.
down the road, what's going on and if they've been acquired and so forth. They don't want to be
Sure.
left out. Right. Yep. Okay.
Yep. So number 4, we're still following.
Yep.
Number 5, it looks like we're still following, and we haven't taken any action on any of these, correct?
Those
this
two,
committee.
Yep. Those two, you are correct.
Number 6, one of the properties also appear in number 3. So 743 is Park Avenue appears in number 6 and in number 3.
6. Yeah, it is.
Because it's an out-of-state owner or deceased owner.
Right.
Doesn't she?
Right. So from one property, next three properties, certified letter is like. Yeah, I'm gonna have to verify that because I got them on two of them and I shouldn't have. So I'm gonna make sure I verify that for you. Okay?
Right, well, because it doesn't matter. Either we sent them on to redevelopment or we didn't, right?
Right. We approved them as blight. So they would be sent on to redevelopment for, I just want to make sure that we did it and that it's just not sitting there in limbo.
See, I thought that we had to give property owners an opportunity. I thought we had to send letters and then provide property owners an opportunity to appeal and then have the hearing with us before we could actually vote to send them on.
We did
Am I
that.
wrong about that?
Nope, you're correct. We did that.
We did
And what
that.
happened? Yep. We did that back in January 20th, I believe the minutes were.
Okay, great. So,
And there was like 9 properties there that were sent on to that for approval.
okay, so number 6, you're saying they've already been sent on as well. Even though the certified
Yes.
letters were sent back, can we
Yes.
really send
No.
them on?
What we did was on that certified letters, okay, the next 3 properties were reviewed by the Blighted forwarded on to the Williamsport Planning Commission and Redevelopment Authority. Okay, at that point, we sent 3 approval. All 3 were approved as blighted. Certified letters were sent and returned back to the city. They would need to be sent by sheriff's sale and so forth. They still have, once they receive that notice by sheriff's sale, they still have the right to come in and appeal that decision. Okay. And again, I know they were sent through by the Blighted Property Review Board. I will verify that, but I'm almost positive these were sent on to the other committees, but I will verify that and have that information for you at the next meeting. I'm writing that down.
Well, that is a confusion then with that 743 Park
Yep.
Avenue, because that puts it in 2 categories.
Yep. And I said that should not be.
Yeah.
Yep. Should not be. Okay.
I think they live in California.
So did we actually take, did we take an action on October 20th in the minutes where we actually approved the properties in number 7 as blight?
Yes, that's in the meeting minutes back. We approved those 4 properties were presented to city, to the board, and they were approved as blight. They have not been forwarded on to anyone at all.
I thought that we had agreed. I thought I looked at the minutes. We actually took a vote without actually seeing confirmation that what the properties looked like. I know, does anyone else recall a vote?
Wasn't there. Sure.
We didn't vote on October 20th. We only had a discussion on the vacancy ordinance.
Right.
So I would say that we probably did not officially approve them as blight. If we did not take an action, correct?
I assume we took an action. Then what I'll do is prepare the pictures, bring them all back in front of this board, and then we can approve them as blight and move forward from there. Fair enough?
Yeah,
Yeah, Pat Marty, do you recall
No,
So
I'm
you-
looking at the minutes. I know
Yeah.
we didn't, and I'm not
Nothing.
sure. I did not note the date when we went through, when Mr. Jardy went through there of October 20th. So I appreciate you pointing that out because that obviously that action never occurred.
Okay, thank you. So we'll vote on them at a future meeting. when we-
Unless that date's an error and we had voted for them at a different meeting, but I don't.
No, I do not believe so. I think it was that was the meeting we brought them forward. I will verify all that. If they have not been approved, then we will definitely get the information to you. We can approve them at our next meeting if you wish so. If you determine that they're blank.
Okay.
All
Yeah, we
right.
didn't have a presentation on those. Where is Andrew's place? I'm blanking.
By
Andrew Place,
Textron.
yeah, you go down Oliver Street. You go up
Over
High
by
Street.
Textron.
Yeah, you go past the former AFCO. And then right there at Oliver, you make a left, you go down the hill, and once you get to the second street, you make a right. That's Andrew's place. It sits down in there where Lynn
Yeah.
Williams
I'm
is.
just trying to remember if we have done these, it just wasn't on October 20th.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I will be more than happy to research that and get that information back to you because I don't have all my minutes with me. I just have the last meeting. So.
I'm just looking them up now.
like to state for the record, Tony, that's a flattering angle.
That's a. Yeah, I just looked up a couple of these and they don't look familiar to me that we discussed them. But I wasn't at the 20th meeting, so.
No, we did not. There were no items at the 20, because we almost didn't have the meeting. We barely had a quorum, and then the discussion was with the vacancy ordinance, was my recollection. That's the minutes we just approved reflect.
I just was looking on the August 18th meeting, and I had notes that that we had 1650 Andrews Place. It says approved, and then 2701 West 4th approved blighted.
Yeah, that's what
We
I'm
did?
thinking. I'm thinking we did them in August.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I have all my notes here that said we did it in August.
Okay,
And I was not at that meeting, so that's
Okay.
very possible. And I did not have the minutes to that meeting either, so I could not.
Yes.
Hold on.
Yeah, because I think I remember asking where Andrew's Place was before.
so if I'm correct in what I'm hearing, they were approved, but it was the wrong date I have down. Instead of October, it was in August.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
looking at the August minutes and they definitely are in there.
I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
2701, 1650, 1241, and yeah, they're all in there.
which means there are letters on those that, in addition to, I know
We
the
did make
robust,
positive recommendations on all of them, yeah.
right.
which
Okay.
means there are letters on those that need to be signed as well.
That's correct. That's
that
correct.
Being caught up in this other discussion that I'm sure we're going to have in a minute.
Correct.
And I just wanted to clarify for 1241 Park Ave. It just, again, in my scratch notes, it says demo, and then it says we were tabling it. Did we table that one?
Just to let you know, that building is, if it's not completely down now, it will be here in the next, okay? He pulled a permit during this time to tear it down. It's in the process of, I wanted to make sure that the building was down before we, went ahead and didn't or send out a letter or did not send a letter out. Okay, so that one, once probably at our next meeting, I'll bring it back and say it's off the list because it's been gravelled or it's been seeded and it's down.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Awesome.
So basically, we'll be sending out 3 letters at this point. As long as 1241 has been completely torn down, we'll be preparing 3 letters to be sent out to these owners, letting them know that we found these buildings to be blighted, if I am correct.
Yeah, but now that it's been so long, which is a concern I've expressed about the other letters, I would, just for my own advocacy before I sign it, I'd like you or one of your officers to go check to make sure conditions haven't changed in the ground for those 3 properties.
And as I said previously, Mr. Marty, I do these personally. I'll make sure that's done. Okay, I know Mrs. Wilson said something about the property on, the day is what, 829 High Street? that the one?
920.
920, yes. I went out there prior to verify the fact that nothing's been done. I have pictures taken. I have the letter to be sent out. That property 9-month extension ends November 20th. So I have 2 more days to wait before I can send that letter out to them saying that it's no longer, we're revoking your extension. It's past the time frame. This is going for legal action and acquisition. And that information will be sent to our attorney so he can verify it and sent back. So I do go out and verify the fact that these things are still there. I do verify the fact, I try to verify the fact that someone hasn't purchased it, because a lot of times that'll happen. Somebody will try to sneak in and buy the property. Now I got to deal with a whole entire different individual. So, but those 3 will be verified. Pictures will be given to you at the next meeting, and you can go ahead at that point and take action.
But no,
Well,
well,
you already did. You took action.
yeah, that's not what I'm
Oh,
suggesting.
no. I mean, I will go out and verify that it's the same condition exists at the time that these were done. And at that point, I will verify, I will prepare the letter and send it back to you so you can sign it. That's what you're asking for.
Exactly. Yeah, only in the situation of those 3, just because
Yep.
it's been so long.
Yep.
I wouldn't normally, a couple weeks after a meeting, for me to sign the letters is one thing. 10 weeks is different.
Correct. And I'll be honest with you. I've been to that building here. I've been about to every one of those 3 here in the last month, and it's still the same condition, but I will verify it prior to preparing the letter.
Okay. All right, just let me know and I'll get
Yep.
those. With that, that's a due process issue that I don't want to see raised by someone that we didn't, act with some sort of urgency.
Mr. Marty, I have to go to another meeting, so please forgive me for leaving this meeting.
Understood.
See, it's getting,
Okay. More questions on that update from any other members of the committee?
So there's only 2 properties really now that remain with us, correct? Number 4, which is 415 High Street. And number 5, which is 2237 4th Street, West 4th Street. Is that right? They're the only, everything else has been moved forward or rectified?
been moved forward or rectified except for those, and then the new ones, those 3 that Mr. Marty talked about that I'll bring forward to the board or have the letters prepared, verify that they are still blight and bring the letters prepared. And once that happens, then we're off those too. We would, like you said, we were not involved in those anymore, other than just updates periodically, let you know how we're making out with them.
So I am going to attempt to recap this here real quickly. Referring to the document with the numbers that was provided.
Yep.
We are going to take a look at which one's doubled up. 743 Park Avenue. We need to get some clarification on because it's in 2 categories. One of those 4 properties in 7, I forget the address, has been demolished and needs to come off.
That would be 1241.
And the other 3, 2701, 1650, and 717, will execute letters to validate our action at the August meeting. And then we will await new references from your officers as to properties that meet the definition, that may meet the definition of blight, that we will then confirm at future meetings.
That's correct. And if anybody should drive around and see something that they're concerned about, please forward the information to me and I'll have one of my officers go out and look,
Okay.
as we've done in the past.
So the 3 properties that you're sending letters to that Pat just referenced in number 7, the 3 he's going to send the new letters to,
Yeah.
do we have to wait a period of time to allow them to respond before you send them to the redevelopment authority, or no, they can just go?
My understanding is they go automatically unless they appeal. Their action is an appellate action. And
Correct.
so therefore, absence an appellate action, the machinery moves forward. The only thing that stops that is they're appealing our decision back to us saying, hey, reconsider your action, declaring us blight because of X, Y, or Z. And that's
Right.
when we have those hearings.
And in the document being sent out, that there's a date that it's sent, and it says you have X amount of days to reply if you wish to appeal. If you fail to repeal in that particular time frame, then basically your opportunity to appeal is no longer there. That's how I understand it. That's how it was explained to me by our attorney. So they do have an opportunity to appeal if they wish, but it's a certain time frame. I think it's 21 days. I don't know off the top of my head without looking at a letter.
Other questions on the update on the 18, really 17 residential, really 16 residential properties? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. That was not an action item, by the way. There are none today. There is besides the minutes approval. Subject 3, discussion on blighted commercial properties. And there was an attached email exchange between Mr. Girardi and Attorney White that was sent out as well.
Correct.
Mr. Girardi.
Yeah, and basically I did discuss with Mr. White this morning for about a half hour. And again, he apologizes that he cannot make it, but he said if we need to see him at the next meeting, and I think it would be good if he does come in from the attorney, because you're just getting this information from me and I'm relaying it to you. You did get the minutes or the email that was sent to us by Mr. Austin White. And basically we have 8 commercial properties right now that were approved as blight / vacant back couple months ago or a month, I think it's 2 months ago. Don't quote me on that, but I do have, and I have all the letters here in front of me that were prepared to be sent out and signed. I had a discussion with Mr. White. It is my opinion and his opinion on the 3 that I sent him, that 2 of them are not blighted, they're vacant, and the 1 is definitely blighted. And that's the former Webster School that we talked about. That is technically a blighted property that's vacant. He told me, and this is where it's been miscommunicated, and I believed it also, that a property which is only vacant could be a blighted property, but it is not. And Mr. Marty, I believe you pointed this out in last meeting, that a blighted property is vacant. I mean, a vacant property, as long as it's associated with some of the blighted items in the ordinance, then it becomes blight, such as a public nuisance, such as an attractive nuisance for children, such as a dilapidated building falling apart and vacant for a year. That is truly a blighted property. A property that has violations on it that are minor violations, such as weeds, such as some peeling paint on certain areas of the building, is considered a property maintenance violation with a vacant structure. Now, we are working on a vacant ordinance right now for the city. I know Chelsea's working on it. She's pulling in different information from different municipalities or cities such as ours, third-class city, to come up with a vacancy ordinance. And so at this point, what I am recommending is that we have these 8 properties, and I'm recommending as a code administrator, and that's the other thing I asked Austin White. I said, okay, Austin, let me ask you a question. Who is the determining factor on what is blight and what is not blight? And he said, I am the guy who does that, because I'm the guy that's got to go to court when these guys file and say my blight is not property, and they decide to, let's say they decide to appeal the decision, and the board appeals that decision, says, no, you're not allowed to do it. They can go to the next step and they can go to the court. I'm the guy that's got to go in and testify in court that this is a blighted property based off the ordinance. I think you also saw in there that Mr. White said that the ordinance that was prepared many, many moons ago is really not prepared properly. It should be reworded and redone. He said that in the actual minutes that were sent to us. And I talked to him about that too, because I think we got a vacant ordinance, and we're going to hopefully have a vacant ordinance, and we'll have a vacant blighted property ordinance, 2 different ordinances, which I believe could be administered by this board. So what before I send any of these letters out, my opinion, and this is what I would like to say, and the board, this is why I have it open for discussion. Webster School, by the attorney's definition, is definitely blighted. Okay. The 2 other ones I sent him were the former U-Haul building. No, he said that's not blighted, that is vacant. And he also sent, the other one was the Williamsport Surgical Center on 920 Washington Boulevard. That is a vacant structure and not blighted. Okay. I propose to send the other 4 on here, because I did not send them all 8, because I was trying to give them the best of them. The other ones that are left on here, I would prefer him to look at them, give me his determination. At our next meeting, we can approve them as blight, which ones are, reapprove them as blight, which ones are, which ones aren't, and then notify those property owners instead of sending these all out and making us look bad that we didn't do our homework. And again, I apologize. Some of that's my fault, because we normally never got this far before on a blighted property review committee. This is the first time we've ever actually tried to acquire a building. The way we normally have done it in the past was we have property maintenance violations. We'll send them out to these owners, and they're required to fix those problems. Okay. Only one of these properties on here, other than the former U-Haul building, was the only one that's ever been notified of violations on the building as far as any property maintenance issues. Okay. So my question to you is, this is my suggestion on this part. The board, if you wish, we can revote, or we can say I'm staying with what we decided last time and send them out. I just prefer that we have our ducks in a row in the commercial buildings, because we're going to go, I can guarantee you on these properties alone, the ones I see here, we are going to go to court on several of these, and we need to be able to make sure that we can win our battle in court. So my proposal is to this committee that we send these to Austin, all of them, have him review and verify whether he feels they're blight or not. And if he comes back with the same determination as me, then I think we come back to this board and send those ones, or approve those ones that are blighted, and send those out to the property owners. And I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions. Like I said, I believe that's the proper way to do it. I got the guy that's got to go to court, put my hand up and say, yeah, I testify that these are blighted properties. And personally, I believe some of these are not blighted. They are vacant, and they should be put on a vacancy list, which I have started to prepare. Anybody can see it. I got 58 vacant structures in the city as of right now. And that's not vacant ground. Those are vacant structures. A lot of them are large structures that would fit a vacancy ordinance, but not truly fit a blighted ordinance. And that's my presentation.
So Joe, I have a
Excuse me.
question.
Yes.
To let everybody know, I to sign off. I apologize. I have another meeting that I have to get into. I apologize for leaving early, but I just want to let everybody know.
Yep.
I look forward to the conclusion. Thank you, everybody.
Yep, thank you. Go ahead, Tony, I'm sorry.
So Joe, my question is just a general question concerning since we're realizing now that, okay, vacancy alone does not define blight for us.
Right.
As a committee. So, and you know, you had mentioned, and maybe I'm wrong, that a couple of these properties we had put forth in the beginning for commercial had no code violations on them.
Right.
So obviously what we have to determine blight, so that, as you say, our ducks are in a row and Austin has to go to court, you have to go to court and prove blight, is that yes, they've been vacant for a significant amount of time, at least a year or longer. And
Right.
two, they have these other conditions, some other condition in them, their danger, blah, blah, blah. So code violation on a general commercial building that us as committee members could see. We're not privy to a commercial inspection going inside the building, but I'm driving around, I see a building on this list. It has broken windows. It has peeling paint. It's an old structure. I know the structure's built before 1978. It's got old exterior peeling paint. That's lead-based paint probably underneath there.
Right.
Are those code violations currently on commercial buildings in the city? Is that a violation that you would go out, your team would go out and say, you have significant peeling paint on the exterior of this building, and we write that up as a code violation?
That's correct.
Something like that.
Right, right. And then basically at that point, in dealing with all these residential properties in the past, we sent them out a violation notice. Maybe we didn't find the owner, or maybe the owner just ignored us and we couldn't locate him to cite him. We sent him out for several times. Then we turn around and say, okay, fine. He's not doing anything to try to correct this problem. This property is a vacant, blighted property and got put on the list. These buildings here, I feel that we should at least, even though I know some of these owners, some of these buildings been that way for a while, I think we should at least send them that violation notice saying, these are the items that are wrong with your building. You need to correct them within this period of time. Please notify me within the next 25 days and let me know what your schedule is to correct these problems. If you don't want to do anything, that's fine. We're going to put it on the blighted list, and then we'll seize this property, acquire it, and give it to a developer who will do those things. But I believe until we notify the owner, I think personally, I don't think we're doing our due diligence as a code department or as a city in informing these people. Now, again, if you want to fall back on me and say it's my problem, I should have informed them. I got broad shoulders. I should have informed them, but we did not. And I think doing the right thing now is we should inform them that they have violations on their properties. Okay.
That should occur and can occur independently of this board action. So
that's correct.
It can occur at any time. One of your codes officers can write someone up, not even knowing that we were meeting on the same property because they're busy doing other stuff. And that would be understandable that those things can occur simultaneously, because one is health and safety of the people in the community, and one is a larger governmental action on a habitual problem.
Right. Yes. And I'm not saying that. And that's one thing I wanted to do to let this board know that as soon as I'm done with this meeting, these violation notices are going out on all these properties. Okay. Good. And then right. And like I said, the other thing is with the blighted ordinance, there's a lot of stuff in there that Austin and I talked to. It's kind of tough. What is an attractive nuisance? I'd like anybody to tell me. I guarantee all five of us are going to have a different opinion on what an attractive nuisance is. Or is it a nuisance for a child or an attraction for a child to be there? You got a vacant lot, you got kids running around. Yeah, any property could be that. Some of those things kind of bother me.
I would guess there are sitting legal precedents in America for attractive nuisance to come enough legal term. I would think that Austin could advise us to that.
Right. And that was my concern too, is because what my opinion of a nuisance is and yours maybe is different than what Austin, our attorneys, is. And Austin's the guy that's got to go to court with me. And as long as he's saying, yeah, this is an attractive nuisance, I got no problems with my attorney backing me. But right now, he's kind of not going 100% with everybody. He's not going 100% my way. What he's doing is looking at 3 I sent. He said 2 to 3, he does not believe they are. I prefer to send him the other ones, so he has a list of all those properties that we have on this list. And then he can either agree or disagree with this board and myself.
Well,
I
I think that I just want to say, it sounds like from what you started at the beginning, that this board did not have accurate information at the time that it made the recommendation as to the actual definition of blight. So I don't know that I was at the meeting where you discussed it, but this is the first that we're getting the clarification. This probably could be a future conversation. I don't think we should take any.
No, I agree, Jen. I do want to clarify, though, that at that meeting, there was a considerable discussion about vacancy on each property, but that is only because we have been told since day one, when Austin admonished all of us, that one of the criteria, the underlying denominator, no matter what the other things are, is that building's got to be vacant. So you can have all kinds of things that are codes violations, but if occupants are allowed to be in that building still, it necessarily cannot be blighted.
That's correct.
Logic, it doesn't pass the test of logic.
Right.
For common law.
And all
So
8 of
that
these.
was why that question was asked. And so if there is some inference that is the rationale behind putting properties in the Blighted Property Review Board, that's certainly incorrect for this member of the committee, and I think probably for all of us. Because we were just doing our job to validate each property, and that's why that question was asked at the end.
I agree. I agree. The ones that we brought up they weren't brought up just because they were vacant. They were brought up because we knew that they had violations, whether they were documented or not yet or served. But we also knew they were vacant. So they meet both those things, they did. Now, has status changed on some of them since we first brought them up? Perhaps somebody went out and painted a building or replaced windows or did something great. But that's why I say we need to have a better understanding when we're out there as members of this committee, public at large, looking at properties, bringing them to this committee, to these meetings and saying, Joe, here's an address. Do you have any written violations on it that you're aware of? Because I think we did this with the residential in the beginning, and Joe was able to give us a list and say, yeah, that's been cited. So maybe we see something, bring it in. So no, it hasn't been cited. Okay, well, I think it's vacant and I think it has violations on it. Let's get it cited, so that we can move forward as a committee and certify it as blight.
And to underscore,
that's my point.
And to underscore that, Tony, that's why we were very deliberate about that process, where we all made suggestions that maybe people in the community have brought to us, maybe things we'd observed ourselves, that not unlike the residential properties, we also did the same thing for those new category of commercial properties, which were only allowed to be reviewed once council changed the ordinance to allow for that, as we may recall from earlier in the summer. So we were on hiatus for that, but we had, submitted those. People had brought them forward, neighbors who are concerned about the condition of some of those properties, et cetera. I do want to say that I think one of the things I'd like to get, what I'd like to do is get Austin at the next meeting, and because we're losing members anyway, and this is an important discussion. Because a lot of people that can't be here right now have had some really good thoughts on this in the past, including the mayor, including Councilman Palizzi, and I think it's important they're part of the conversation.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, Pat, and that's the reason, or Mr. Marty, that's the reason why I said that he'd be available at next meeting, and that's the reason why I felt I didn't want to open a bad can of worms by sending these out until I verify.
I just want to finish my point, because I'm going to forget it otherwise, because I got too much on my plate. So I want to be clear that the word dwelling is a problematic dwelling in the ordinance, a problematic word in the ordinance. And that's in the criteria in section C3. It says any dwelling, which because it is dilapidated, unsanitary, unsafe, vermin infested, or lacking in the facilities and equipment required by the housing code of the municipality, has been designated by the department responsible for enforcement of the code, which would be you guys, as unfit for human habitation. Again, the word dwelling, I think, may limit our application to commercial properties. And so it's something I would like Austin and maybe council take a look at when they do the cleanup. that it ought to be structure and not dwelling.
That's what I've already done. I've already started the process on this, which I end up handing to the attorneys and we go over it. I put down number C, I cross dwelling out and say any structure, which is, there's a lot of areas where we talk dwelling and it should be and or structure, something of that sort. So I'm agreeing with you 100%, Mr. Marty. I'm just saying it's kind of tough to push it through with certain ways this ordinance has been prepared. This is strictly written for a residential ordinance. And we modified it by adding the commercial end of it, but we never really went back through the ordinance and changed certain things that would help us in there. Because if this says any dwelling which has, I can't use that for a commercial building. It should say
agree.
structure.
I agree. And it makes me question our solicitor review process that wasn't caught.
Right.
The other thing, and I don't think that's Austin. I think that might have been another.
Yeah, and again, I think there's a lot, not blame to go around, but I think there's a lot of inconsistencies that we have here that goes around, and I'm part of that. And that's the reason I'm trying to make it so it's right. I'd like to see it go through right the first time, than for us to go to court and find out we did something completely wrong. And I think, like you're saying, with Austin here at the next meeting, I think he'll be able to clarify a lot of things. And we can start at that point by recertifying some of this blight on these commercials, if I got the approval of this board.
And so if I get hit by a bus and can't be at the meeting, I want to make sure that people hear what I'm going to say next.
Sure.
Because this is a question for Austin as well.
Yep.
I think that regardless of the vacancy issue that we've discussed, the lack of occupancy, there's actually criteria under the existing ordinance that allows those properties still to be certified as blight. And I think because if you look at C2, it literally says any premises which because of physical condition, use, or occupancy, I underline the word occupancy, is considered an attractive nuisance. Therefore, it does seem, interestingly enough, that vacancy is a criteria by which you can certify blight. And so I'd like Austin to clarify thoughts around that.
Right. And I asked him the same thing, and that's because several of these were just vacant. And it was told to me at that point that it's vacancies, the underlying bottom line part of the ordinance. But with vacancy, you must have this, this, and this in order for it to be blight. And that's where I need him to come in to explain to this board where he's coming from and so forth. He explained to me vacancy and occupancy is not blight. It is vacancy and occupancy. It must have something to go along with that. Now, again,
this flies in the face of that. This flies in the face of that. And so that's why I would like him to focus his legal mind.
Yep, absolutely. And I would let him know what our concerns are here end of today and have him review and go through this ordinance prior, not just the day before, for this next 30 days. And then he'll come to the meeting and hopefully we'll be able to start anew at that point and continue on.
Okay, certainly I think there are some other criteria in C5 and C4 that may apply to some of those other buildings as well, like where facilities have been disconnected. Certainly I can think of one of those properties where that's clearly the case. Rendered ineffective, so the property is unfit for its intended use. I can certainly see properties where that is the case. I think there's some considerations that need to be had around those things as well for all those properties. I think some of those criteria were reasons why members of this committee did vote to certify those things. And upon the recommendation, by the way, of Codes Department, because the Codes Department does bring them forward necessarily, that's how our meetings work.
Right. One thing I did, and that's the other one you brought up about utilities and so forth. Some of these, I know some of these particular properties I have on this commercial list, the water's been disconnected for years. But my question is, water being disconnected, is it different than water being, I understand the purpose of somebody disconnecting a building because it's winter time and they shut it off because they don't want their pipes to freeze. They want to cut back on the heat. So they disconnect the water by telling the water authority to shut it off at the curb. I realize that fits into that criteria, but to me, that's one of them things. I need to have something else, in my opinion, other than just the water being disconnected because he doesn't want his pipes to freeze in the building. That's just my opinion. That's why I think we need Austin here to verify some of those things, because I want to be on the same page with the board, but I also want to be able to go to court and be able to sit up there and say, yep, this is truly a blighted property. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Marty, but I just want Austin to verify everything because, like I said, he's the guy who reads and regulates ordinances better than me. I know many ordinances. This is one of the first times I've gone through past the point of putting them on the list. We're going the next step.
I understand we're in a different situation here with commercial properties because it's not been done before. And I understand there was an amendment to the ordinance that allowed that to occur. And so therefore we're in uncharted territory as a city. And maybe there aren't other cities in the Commonwealth that dealt with this. I can't believe that, but maybe that's the case. I grant you all of that, but we got to get some, this board does have a job to do and an action to do, and it's not, no offense to Austin White, who I like a lot. It's not the Austin White board, it's the Blighted Property Review Board. And if we vote to certify something based on something that's brought forward, then it's certified as blight. It can be turned over by the courts. It can be not accepted by those other entities at the Planning Commission or the Redevelopment Authority. I don't care. If we vote for it by a majority, it's blight by the law.
Right. And, I agree 100% with you, Marty, Mr. Marty, but I'm thinking though, I think I would prefer that when we do that, at least we have something. I prefer to go through the process, have it so it's blighted, goes through those things and we acquire the property.
I want us to be successful too. Yes. I want you to be successful. No question.
Right. Because there's a lot of legwork involved with my department going out, getting the pictures, getting the information, rounding up all this information, sending it through just to have it thrown back and saying it's not a blighted property. So that's the only reason I'm saying it'd be nice to have Austin try to set some guidelines for us and say, okay, I realize it's not his board, it's our board. We determine what blight is. I determine it, bring it to you guys. You guys either say, yes, Joe, it's blighted, or no, it's not blighted. And at that point, we forward it on to the committees. I truly understand all that. I just like to get it so that we're all set on the same page and we can all agree with this, not just having some opinions on this, some opinions on that. That's just my gut feeling. That's where I'm coming from.
So we're going to have Austin at our next meeting. But in the meantime, could you, Robin or Joe, could you send the list out of the commercial properties to us just so that we can have them, so that I could have them in advance of the
I think we
meeting?
did send them out to you, but I'd be more than happy to resend them out to you. Okay, I'm going to go back out and get some more pictures of these buildings, because originally on mine, I did an overall review, took a picture of the front of it. I'll be able to go around now between now and then, give me about a week. And I'll have my individual officers go out and take pictures all around the building, showing any violations that we have and giving you that information. That you're looking for?
Yeah, well, I just wanted the addresses so that prior to the meeting, I could drive by myself so that I could know where they were, because again, I was not at that August.
Yep, I have it right here. I'll be more than happy to forward it to you today.
Thank you.
What list is it?
This list right here, I'll give it to you, Robin. Just forward it out. Actually, we'll forward that list back out to all the members. Fair enough? So we'll forward the list to all the members, so every member has that list.
Yeah, that's fine. That, and send it along with the minutes from the amended minutes from the August 20th meeting, once those are amended, because that will, the addresses are also reflected in there. And so then
yes. Okay. August 20th.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Anything else on discussion of blighted commercial property? Sorry, Ms. McDonald. Mrs. McDonald, we have not allowed you much opportunity to speak here.
No, that's right. No, we're good. I was just going to say that the list of those commercial blighted properties was in the attachment, I think, that Robin sent out for the August meeting. So it is.
So if we send out the August minutes, there'll be attachments along with that, right?
Revised. Yeah.
Yep. Revised. Yep.
Okay. Absent anything else, anything for subject for new business?
I just have one thing in discussion with Austin. Typically what we need to do is, because I do get calls from individual wanting to talk to this board about this and that, whether it's good or bad, they're always questioning certain things that we do. Austin said in our agenda items, we should have something on subject after the minutes approval. Subject to should be comments from the general public. In case someone out there wants to talk, we shouldn't handle it under new business. We should have actually a category for it in our thing. So at our next meeting, you will see there'll be a category for, and they would have to call, notify us that they want to be on the meeting. They just can't pop up and talk. Okay, it's very similar to what council does.
Yeah, and there's a limitation on the amount of time, and it needs to be germane to an item on the agenda, or I think at the beginning of the end, you can speak for a lesser amount of time on any item. So I think we have to do before and after. We need to have
you're correct.
Comment at the end, which is again limited to even a smaller amount of time, but really can be about the moon landing if you want.
Right, and you're exactly right. And like I said, that's typically the same thing happens at council. You have your open word 5 minutes in the beginning and 3 minutes at the end. 3 minutes at the end, you can talk about anything you want. First 5 minutes have to be agenda items only.
Right. That's fine. Yeah, absolutely. We want to be in compliance with the Sunshine Act.
Yep. And that's all I have.
Okay. Jen?
Nothing. Nope.
I'd like to make one comment just in general for all of us, because I know, you serve on a lot of these things and you wonder, we're doing the right thing, right? We're getting our process together. We're making, I have no doubt that we are, making an impact already, and we can continue to do so with this committee. I look at just that 510 Rural Avenue since we started, and there's a property that at one point sold for $40,000, and after it was redone this time, it just sold, for $150,000. That's what we need.
Right.
Obviously, and that's our goal here. Our goal is to also make that happen on these commercial properties that we're talking about and many more. Joe, I was shocked that Joe said he had a list of 58, I think you said, vacant.
Yeah, vacancies. Yep. Yeah, and I'm more than happy to send that to this board if they wish to just see what they are. Even though we don't have a vacancy ordinance yet, but there's nothing wrong with me sending a list out to this board, because my opinion is, if we do ever come up with a vacancy ordinance, I think it should be administered by this same board, because we're dealing with blighted, vacancy, and vacancy. So that's my gut feeling. I don't think we should make a new board up for that.
Right. I'd be interested in seeing that list for sure.
Sure.
But I do think, yes, it's imperative we get Austin here and involved also in that we get ourselves as a board, to Mr. Marty's point. Look, if we certify it as blight, we certify as blight. If somebody can defend themselves against that successfully, fine. That could happen no matter what. But let's get our ducks in a row and let's start this process on this commercial side, because I certainly see where I think on the residential side, even with all these other properties now that we've forwarded, and other ones being sold, like 415 High Street was purchased, with that purpose. So I think if we continue on, we can have some really nice success with it. But that's all.
I don't disagree with you at all, Mr. Noddy.
Ms. McDonald, anything? Chief Killian, anything? Chief Killian, anything from you?
No, not at all. I definitely just reiterate, and I apologize for missing some of the meetings here previously. The commercial end of this is much needed. We deal with the commercial properties from a fire department standpoint with our fire inspection process. And we've been working with Mr. Girardi on that. Our goal here from a fire department standpoint is we tend to have a little easier access into the commercial properties than the codes department does. So we're looking forward to getting that process up and running. It's just juggling a lot of balls at the same time as our workload increases, call volume wise. So I appreciate the work the board's doing, and we'll keep moving forward on this.
And if you go ahead, Pat, I'm sorry.
I was just going to thank Chief for that. That's great to hear those synergies are occurring. It's been a long time coming.
And Chief Kelly, and I'll also forward you that vacancy list, because I think you'd be kind of interested in knowing if there's